And welcome. Good morning and welcome to this May 2023 meeting of the Outreach and Engagement Committee. I'm going to ask Stephanie to take a roll call.
Good morning, everyone. Ava Ramirez Zimmerman.
Present.
Lisa Canada has not joined us yet. Adrian Cochran. Adrian has not joined us yet. Sheila Hummel. Sheila has not joined us yet. Molly Weston Williamson.
Present.
And Justin Zartman. Justin has not yet joined us. We do not have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would love to acknowledge any members of the public who wish to identify themselves, but do not need to. And hearing none, we're going to skip over the next item on the agenda, which is approving the April minutes since we don't have a quorum, and skip right ahead to updates from Jessica.
Thank you, Molly. Okay. All right, so I wanted to provide a little bit more context around an idea that Erin mentioned at the board meeting last week, which is our library outreach campaign. So this is something Maddie and I are working on together, and it came out of just hearing from different folks, about constituents that they work with who may have more limited access to technology or to the internet, and so kind of prompted us to think more deeply about ways that we could connect with those individuals. So we had a meeting earlier this week with the Connecticut Library Consortium, which is a membership organization that represents over 900 libraries in Connecticut. So those are all different kinds of libraries, including educational, ones that like Sikorsky or Pratt and Whitney, for example, but definitely connected to all the public libraries in the state. So we have a few different ideas that we're exploring and that we would like to implement. Excuse me. One is that we're going to develop a resource guide for libraries to keep at their reference desk. So that'll provide both sort of the nuts and bolts overview of the paid leave program, and also more comprehensive with screenshots showing how to apply, so that if someone does come into the library to use the technology to do the online application, they'll have a step-by-step guide of how to do that, both on a desktop and from a mobile phone. We also are going to be working on doing a pilot program where we can actually do on-site presentations at different libraries. So we'll do sort of a short overview of the Connecticut Paid Leave Program, and then also promote that we'll remain on site for some period of time after that in order to have one-on-one conversations or to help folks who want to apply. So we'll bring our laptops and be able to actually walk people through that process. And then at the end of doing that application, we'll help them print out the documents they need. So they'll leave with everything that they need in order to complete that application. We were initially thinking of doing that in Hartford. The executive director at the Library Consortium suggested that we might want to start with Middletown, just as a little bit of a smaller market where we could kind of test out and see what works. So we're thinking that we will start with that mid-summer time in Middletown. We also are going to create a poster or info sheet for libraries to keep in their community resource area. The Library Consortium directors have roundtable events where they get together and hear about different programming opportunities. So we're going to get in touch with them and ask if we can attend to share our pitch to them. And of course, we will support all of this with both a media outreach and a public relations campaign. And the goal, of course, is to be able to extend this so that we are eventually in the different regions throughout the state at the major libraries. I did want to provide an update now that the fund recovery campaign that we ran from January to April has concluded. I just wanted to share an update about the results of that campaign. So if you'll remember, we had a couple of different audiences that we were working to reach. One was non-compliant employers. So for that part of the campaign, we delivered over 3.3 million impressions, which yielded nearly 9,500 clicks to the audience, click-throughs to the website. The second audience was that employee pull-through campaign where we were reminding employees to check their paycheck, make sure they were seeing their deductions come out. That was over just about 1.2 million impressions and over 4,000 clicks. For payroll providers, we had both the direct mail piece and on the digital side, we used LinkedIn specifically to reach payroll providers. That was nearly 32,000 impressions and 188 click-throughs. LinkedIn does tend to have a lower click-through rate, so that's not surprising. And then the total for the campaign, over 4.5 million impressions and nearly 14,000 click-throughs. So we're pleased with the results of that campaign. And as you heard in the board meeting, I believe last week, we did have a number of, oh, sorry, I just saw that I think Sheila joined the Teams meeting, maybe.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Thank you. Gosh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So we did have a number of brand new employers who we did not have record of previously register, which was great, and have seen a significant dollar amount collected from formerly non-compliant employers. So we're really pleased with the results of that campaign. Excuse me. I just wanted to share too that we just had a featured piece in the Hartford Business Journal that was published on Monday. And it is a piece on Connecticut paid leave where we're able to talk about sort of our work over the past year, where we've been, where we're going, share some different statistics, etc. So this is linked. So when you get the slides, if you just click on it, it'll take you right to the article if you'd like to read it. Sorry about that. And then lastly, we are plotting out monthly themes now through the end of the year. So I just wanted to give you a preview of what we're doing for the rest of May, June, and July. And the idea behind this is that we'll have sort of an overarching monthly theme that will unite our press releases, podcasts, and much of our social media. Not that this will be the only thing we talk about, but sort of the overarching theme of the month. So for May, we're focused on mental health. We're working on a release that should go out hopefully by the end of this week for Women's Health Week, and talking about women as caregivers and how it's important for them to take care of their mental health, and the tie into paid leave that it is available for serious mental health conditions. Nancy released a podcast earlier this month on minority men and mental health and some of the different challenges with that community and obtaining mental health services. It's also Military Caregiver Month, so we'll have a release on that. And I know Nancy is also working on a podcast about children's mental health. In June, the focus will be transgender and LGBTQ health, and we'll also be able to loop in the definition of a family member under Connecticut paid leave, as that includes chosen family, which is often what the LGBTQ community considers family in many cases. And then in July, we're going to be working on the economic impacts of access to paid leave and lack of access to paid leave. And I know that Nancy is working on some really interesting guests for that month and for her podcast. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about any of those initiatives.
I'm just going to pause us for 1 minute because I know we've had some board members who have joined since we jumped in. So Stephanie, do you want to do an updated roll call?
Sure, of course. Ava Bermuda Zimmerman.
Present.
Isha Canada. Isha has not joined us. Adrian Cochran. Adrian has not joined us yet. And Sheila Hummel. I thought we had Sheila.
Yeah, it looks like she may have stepped away for a moment. So why don't we finish the roll call and we can circle back to her?
Okay, Molly Weston Williamson.
Present.
And Justin Zartman.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So I think we can, now that we've just recognized the board members, I think we can finish up this update and then we'll circle back to the vote on the minutes. So are there questions for Jessica? Well, hearing nobody else, I have questions. So the library pilot seems amazing. Oh, sorry. It looks like we do have on a recognized Sheila Hummel. Sheila, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
problem.
I was having trouble with logging in this morning.
No problem. We just always want to
Thank
make sure we've recorded everyone who's in attendance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we'll circle back to the minutes in a second. So for the library pilot, who is staffing the in-person stuff? Is that Aflac folks? Is that authority folks? Like who's there to do the assistance?
Yeah, that will be the authority, right? So starting out, it'll be our outreach engagement team, Nancy, myself, Maddie, Amber. As we expand, we have talked about using some of the internal benefits team members on John's staff. He has 4 individuals who are, dedicated as sort of liaisons between AFLAC and the authority. So we've talked about also giving them some training so that we have a larger staff to go out and provide that those presentations and in-person assistance.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, this is a pilot, we're figuring it out. It's such a great idea. I wonder if in the longer term, it might be a place where, for example, like law student volunteers potentially like could be really helpful. So for example, there's a big workers' rights clinic at Yale, which used to have a work family subset, which I think has wrapped up, but I bet you could convince them. So I think that can be a down the line thing as you sort of work out the kinks, but I'm conscious that it's not a large team of folks who also have a lot of other things to do, and you can only be so many places at once. So I think just thinking about, once we figured out how to do this well, because it's so important, where there are opportunities to build out the capacity.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And I definitely appreciate those ideas. I think we recognize for sure that we will have to find like trusted community partners that we can train and in order to really scale this, because it's a small state, but it's a big enough state that, 4 of us aren't gonna be able to do it in the long term. So absolutely. As you said, we just want to kind of figure out the best way to do this, the best format, and then find some partners so that we can scale it to cover all of Connecticut.
Yes. And I'll share over, since it sounds like you're focusing on the family definition in June, some new research on chosen family and proportion of people who've relied on chosen family, because the numbers are astronomical.
That's great. And if you have information you could share that we could integrate into social media, and if there's articles or things, please do send them our way. We'd love that.
And I'll follow up on email on that.
Thank you.
Other questions or thoughts for Jessica? Okay. Then I'm gonna jump us back in the agenda so we can look at the April minutes. Is there any discussion we need to have on the April minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the April minutes?
So moved.
Thanks, Timos and Justin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks for the second, Ava. All those in favor of approving the April minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I believe the ayes have it, and thank you for bearing with us. And then I believe we are to Nancy in the agenda.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope everybody is doing well in this chilly morning. The podcast is approaching 2,000 downloads, which is exciting. And last month we had 152 downloads. And as Jessica mentioned, we're really going with a theme. And because May was Mental Health Awareness Month, I did upload the Minority Men's Mental Health podcast. If you haven't listened, it's really good. One of the guests I met at the podcast expo, his name is Justin Little. He experienced mental health issues, very serious ones. And he also has his own podcast, which is the Mental Wealth podcast. And it was really great talking to Ursikin Alexander, who works out of a Cheshire wellness group. He is a therapist. So the two of them, it was a pretty dynamic podcast. And I recorded a mental health podcast yesterday with Dr. Frank Gregory. He is the administrator of the DCF Children's Behavioral Health Community Services System. It's a tongue twister and I got through it, so that was good. but he was amazing. And I also had Shannon Erskine. She runs a program and she has 3 children with mental health issues. So she was the parent and the mom, and we were talking about how that affects the dynamics of the family. So that will be uploaded on May 30th, right after the holiday. We're figured that it would be better not to do it on Monday during the holiday, so we're going to do it May 30th. And just for note, the most popular apps are our website, Apple, and Spotify. The countries that are listening are US, Germany, Canada, and now Finland has made it. So shout out to Finland. And cities listening, the top ones are New Haven, Bristol, West Hartford, Frankfurt, Germany, Boardman, Oregon, Glastonbury, Hartford, Unionville, Boston, and Farmington. So that is the update for this month. We'll see who tops the list next month and see if anything changes. Does anybody have any questions for me about the podcast?
I just have one question, Nancy. I
Sure.
think these podcasts are great. They're excellent. It's such a need for this.
Thank
But I
you.
have a question, like you mentioned minority men, but how about all men? There seems to be is an issue. I mean, it seems to be there's a lot of men of all races that have mental health issues.
We talked about that in that podcast, but the concern was that minority men really have a harder time finding
services?
mental
Okay.
health services. And so that was what the challenge was in that podcast. How are you finding them? And are there enough? And did the pandemic with now telehealth kind of even the playing field a little bit? But so yes, we touched about all men, obviously, because
Yeah,
they
I
have a
just want to
harder
be
time.
sure because it's such an issue
It
among,
is.
I think a lot of young men, like over 25 to, 18 to maybe 25. I mean, you look at all these violent acts that are being done, and a lot of it stems from mental illness too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in the podcast that I just did, that, a lot of men who may act out in school, or kids who may act out in school, go into the juvenile detention center because they're misdiagnosed as behavioral health and not a
Right.
mental health issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talk about that in this podcast coming up that will be released on the 30th. But I definitely feel that men in general have a harder time. We women, we talk to each
Yeah, that's what
other.
it was.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Yeah. Well, no, these podcasts, it's excellent, but
you,
yeah, I think all men,
yeah, I think you're right.
especially now, it just seems like there's such a crisis coming out of COVID and there's a lot of isolation, people working from home.
We talked about PTSD too in this podcast yesterday, that a lot of people are experiencing that from, I mean, I think we all are, right? A little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tenuous getting back out there, but yeah, we mentioned that in yesterday's podcast.
Okay, thank you. No, but great job.
Thank you.
Thanks. I see that Jessica came off mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think the great thing about Nancy's podcast is that each one sort of creates ideas for future ones, right? So, like for example, in focusing on family violence leave as one reason for paid leave, Nancy's done, I think, 2 different podcasts about that. So definitely appreciate this feedback, because I'm sure this won't be the last mental health podcast that Nancy does. And so we definitely appreciate this feedback so that it can be integrated into future ideas. So please keep it coming.
Yeah,
Easy
I love
for
the
me to say
ideas.
because I don't do the podcast, but I know that Nancy appreciates it, and we'll find a way to work in these suggestions.
Yeah, Sheila, any ideas that you have? I'm so open. Thank you.
Okay, because at the church I belong to, I sit on the mental health ministry.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we have quite a few psychologists on the ministry, part of the ministry, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The situations, the stories you do hear about, people suffering since the pandemic.
It's amazing that you have that at your church.
Yeah, well, it's, yeah, our priest, yeah, I think he suffers maybe during COVID, and it was such a need.
Yeah.
So it's just wonderful. So, yeah, I can, actually, I'm
Yes.
gonna refer some of the people to, this website
Oh, awesome.
so they
Thank
can
you so
listen to
much.
the podcast. No, it's just such a crisis out there, and people can't find, psychiatrists, psychologists. It's really difficult.
I agree.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Nancy, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Nancy? Okay, then I will throw it over to Madeline for our legislative update.
Okay, thanks, Molly. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, can everyone see?
We
No, I
can
can't
see your
see the little
screen.
button. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Maddie.
You see like you don't see it in like presentation view though?
It's presentation
No.
view.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. Thank you. And now it just got out of my notes. Okay. Well, here we go. Okay, I'm just here to present just a quick update on some of our legislative work and outreach. First, we mentioned this, I think, at our last meeting in April, but Jessica and I presented to the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus of the legislature on April 22nd. We just provided an update on how the program's been going and information about some of our legislative priorities. That discussion really prompted, I think, our work and ideas around, library outreach that Jessica just mentioned and some other work that we're hoping to do this, later this spring and summer. Jessica also participated in a really great event with the Northeast region of the Department of Labor's Women's Bureau and other advocates highlighting the 30th anniversary of FMLA and specifically focusing on Sexual Assault Awareness Month and how equitable paid leave policies are so critical to victims of sexual violence. That was a really great discussion as well. Erin participated in a panel for WBDC's Women Owned Business Day on April 26th at the Capitol. Nancy and I also tabled that morning and talked to a lot of legislators, small business owners, and sole proprietors about paid leave, which was really great. Lastly, Erin was a guest on a teletown hall hosted by Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro earlier this month on May 1st. That was actually the second time that Erin was asked to do this with Congresswoman DeLauro, so that was really great. She just talked about paid leave and I think answered some questions from folks calling in. We also released an updated version of our legislator toolkit on our website. If you might remember that in September of 2021, we released a legislator toolkit. It hadn't been updated since then, so now this version includes, how to file a claim, what to expect in the process, and then just different information about the basics of the program. It's a resource for legislators, their staff, and also their constituents. The legislator toolkit also includes an updated usage map that shows the number of paid leave claims per town. So kind of along with that, and earlier this month, we also released our May legislator newsletter that included the toolkit, the updated usage map, and then some information about fund recovery. Yeah, and as you all know, we've discussed this, I think, the last few months, but we're continuing to, monitor what's happening at the legislature. The legislative session ends on June 7th, so it's right around the corner. We're continuing to support Senate Bill 1179 and are hoping that moves forward sometime within the next few days, ideally, a few weeks before the session ends. And we're also, keeping an eye on Senate Bill 1223 that we have some concerns about, and also some other, bills that are moving through the legislature that could impact our work. So that's all I have. I'll stop sharing and answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions, folks?
Oh, it was on slide view. Sorry. I don't know why that happened, but
Zoom and PowerPoint do not get along.
I know it's a two screens too. I just am having trouble getting used to it, but it's all good. Thank you.
Anything else that folks have questions about? I'll just, since it seems relevant here, so that folks know, the Federal Family Act, which Congresswoman DeLauro is the lead sponsor of, is being reintroduced probably tomorrow. They announced it for the second time yesterday. There was a great big press conference. Congresswoman DeLauro spoke passionately, as she always does, on the topic, and is also the lead sponsor of the Healthy Families Act, which is the federal paid sick time law. So those are both being reintroduced this week. And I think, just for folks to know, I think really the updates to the Family Act show learning from states like Connecticut. So for example, this is the first time the Family Act will include safe leave, so leave for domestic and sexual violence. That's never been included before. It will also include an inclusive family definition, again, learning from states like Connecticut. And for the very first time, and this we're super excited about, will include job protection for very close to everyone, which it has never ever had before, including in Build Back Better. So again, I think all of that progress at the federal level is really a testament to the ways that states like Connecticut have not only demonstrated the concept, but have been delivering for workers and really, I think, led a path. And with that, any old business? Any new business?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And was that Sheila?
No, it wasn't me, but I can motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Sorry, I think I have an echo of myself.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
I think that
thank-
was Ava.
Oh, Ava, got
Okay.
it. Okay.
I
So
second
we
it
have
then.
multiple motions. So we've heard a motion from Ava and a motion from Sheila. So we got a second.
I'll
A
second.
second. Oh,
Yeah.
Justin will
Whoever-
second.
whoever.
I don't know.
Take whatever one you want.
Stakes are low.
Yeah.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
And I believe the ayes have it. Thanks so much, everybody, and we will see you all soon.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Bye.